Well, Tesla is set to report third quarter deliveries here on Wednesday. Analyst consensus has deliveries coming in at about 461,000. We spoke to Barclays analyst Dan Levy, who says that Tesla has found stability in its fundamentals. Take a listen.
First, you've seen stability on fundamentals, and you're going to see that likely with 3Q deliveries. Europe, US still sort of soft, but pretty good strength from China that have really driven stability in deliveries. And now we think that probably on track to be flat for the full year, as opposed to maybe they were tracking maybe down year over year a few months ago.
Joining us now for more, we got Yahoo Finance's senior autos reporter, Pras Subramanian. Pras, it's great to speak with you. The judgment day for Tesla for the third quarter coming up here. What can we anticipate, and what are your sources telling you about the news we might be getting in?
Well, like what Dan was saying, fundamentals are improving stability there on that overall business. You mentioned that 461,000 deliveries in Q3, up sequentially from Q2, which is actually a big change. People were afraid that, like you mentioned, that sales would actually go down and be less compared to 2023, but it might be the case. It might match that level. What's going on here? China seems to be on a roll, which is surprising given what we're hearing, what's happening, big picture in that country. But Tesla EVs are selling well. Registration data proves that point. The U.S. also doing quite well here for Tesla. Price cuts maybe in the rear view mirror here. Even Dan and I was talking about how we might see a trough in that profit and that margin story finally, with people actually sort of going back to the stores and buying these cars, and maybe that affordability mix is finally there. Interestingly, I want to mention the Cybertruck. 5,000 sales in July alone, tracking around 17,500 in
Is that
year
good?
to date.
You're saying
that's
that like
not nothing. That's not nothing. I mean. If you can hit 5,000 to 10,000 a month going forward, that's not nothing in the U.S. And then eventually they go to Canada and places like that. I'm not saying it's the main driver, but it's something that can add to the additive story of where Tesla is.
You know, Pras, talking about the story of where Tesla is, right? I think a lot of investors are trying to figure out how important these delivery numbers are and how much is ultimately going to matter when there's so much emphasis placed on the robotaxi event that we're going to be getting later on in October, I guess only a few days after we get these results. What are you hearing from analysts just in terms of what matters more, maybe ultimately what that tells us about the direction of the stock and whether or not we can keep this momentum going?
Yeah, I mean, I think that big story is going to be next week when we have that 10/10 robotaxi event. That's the big play here. Adam Jonas wrote a note about how he thinks that the actual Tesla vehicle business is basically break even at this point, given all the costs that are involved. And it's all about that future outlook, AI, robotaxis, the deep commitment to supercomputers and all that stuff happening with Dojo. So that's sort of the big story here. I think a lot of people are sort of waiting with bated breath as to what's going to happen next week. Are we going to see not just a robotaxi that's a prototype, but are we going to hear plans about, are they going to start doing geofenced testing? Are we going to see other products based on the robotaxi, a smaller EV? That's sort of the kind of the promise or the sort of expectation for the bulls here right now for Tesla.
All right. Really interesting stuff, Pras.
It is interesting, and we will see when we get those delivery numbers later on this week. And then, of course, as we look ahead to the event next week, a busy couple of days for your Tesla coverage coming up.